So, I don't necessarily know how to start this or even how I'll go about it. Uh, this is probably gonna be pretty rough to use to really piece together. I suppose I'm gonna start out by saying I always wanted to do some type of podcast. I wanted to be some. Always wanted to be some type of creator. So I feel like I have some sort of talent. I feel like I have a lot of wasted ability that I don't put toward anything due to the stuff that I deal with on my day to day. And I wrestled for a long time of what I would want a podcast to even be about. I mean, people do so many things. They start a podcast for so many reasons. Some people do it because of the money. Some people do it because the topics their genre begin begins with. There's plenty of reasons to start one. I suppose if I was going to start one, I was going to start it off with first episode being about me, and I kind of take it from there. I guess the first things I want to touch on, and I apologize, there's no real structure to this. This is something I decided to start on a whim, and it's not necessarily planned, so it's gonna be rough, and it's gonna be a pretty rough first, I guess, draft or first episode of whatever this podcast will turn out to be, because I'm the type of person that start a project and I never 100% finish it or go through with it, because shit happens or I lose interest in it. That's kind of like the hardest thing to have to deal with. Suppose back when I was maybe around high school or something, I would start a lot of different projects. I ran a YouTube channel with about two other people called our group was called GCB. It was basically the first letters of our name was George Courtney Tamad Barnes. And that was pretty well. That was like basically my first experience with really being in front of a camera. And back then in high school, I was extra shy, and I didn't I didn't really like being in front of the camera. I was mostly the one behind the camera when it came to things of that nature. And that's when I started to try to learn video editing. And I'm not going to say like I was great. Like, I was very inexperienced with it. And I would piece together like these little shitty segments we would do. People like, George, when you do the next video, you need blah blah, stuff like that. Our stuff got kind of popular because people in our school were watching it, and I mean, at least throughout the school, and that didn't take off. Like, a lot of times, most projects I do start, people, they don't take off because of my own state of mind, and it's hard for me to like push myself to do stuff and get like it's like the instance where a lot of people will be able to push themselves and be able to self motivate. Other people do need a little push from some other people, but for me it was like I got a push, and it's just like I didn't react. Not that I reacted so negatively where I was angry. It was more so like I was already I'm pushing past what my anxiety would even let me. So that went on for a little bit, and I started another channel around, I think it was around senior junior year, probably senior year, with Alan. Really cool dude. We We had a video that we released called the Techno Brothers, which was, I think that was one of my first attempts to try to do something like a semi-serious comedy. It didn't go 100% how we wanted to. Like the camera had a horribly like shitty, like it wasn't, nothing about it was professional. It was a camera that I had, and it's not like we were performing with boom mics and all that to keep the wind out of it. Like you can clearly hear scenes where the wind is blowing extra hard and it's picking that up. It was just completely unprofessional. And that was fine. For the state how we were starting and how the state of YouTube was, unless you were like you already had a giant following. It's not like your video quality was expected to be gigantically professional, and that was fine for what we were doing. And I mean, it was pretty alright. We had a pretty alright comedic timing, and I didn't expect it to blow up. Like, I mean, it's like a lot of people start off, like when they start off with any type of I guess content they want to make and get into that. There's structure to it. There's comedic timing that has to be met, and they do enough of those projects. And they keep putting it out. Sometimes it might take off. Maybe there will be one video that goes viral, that gets passed and passed and passed, and that can happen. Um, Again, this is a situation where I'm basically my own worst enemy, and I end up not, you know, going 100% like I should or even I would. Like it's a lot that went on with stuff. So basically, that is like this is something that I set out that I wanted to do, and at this point in my life, it's a little harder to do the things that I originally wanted to do. It's a lot harder. I mean, it's not just the classic. I'm holding myself back. I have a lot more obligations and a lot more things expected of me now. It's just, uh, it's basically how it's grown up. I guess I don't know how to put it. it Things can be, you can be many reasons for a lot of things, but a lot of people put themselves or basically become their own worst enemy. And in this case, I do see myself falling into kind of some of the same patterns. I mean, I'm trying to be as respectful as possible because I'm not the only one that is affected by things I decide I want to do. And that goes for trying to make content because I have to really talk it over with the person I'm with now. I can't just say I can't stop what I'm doing. Like, yeah, I'm not alone anymore. I can't just say, hey, I'm gonna do this content and I'm gonna put it out when I want to. That's the hard part. The hard, that's actually one of the hardest parts, I guess, now in my life is trying to find a balance between everybody in my life and possibly the things I want to do, because what I want to do affects people more now than anything. So, yeah, that is just basically how I guess this whole first part. That's just me explaining my wants with, I guess, content and my understanding of how stuff is supposed to go, or not even just that, or just how my mind worked for years with trying to become any type of content creator. It's hard. I mean, I tried to, around high school, I tried to do everything. I mean, I literally was trying to do everything. I wanted to act and stuff. I wanted to make music. I wanted to make videos. I wanted to do all of it. Maybe I stretched myself too thin and tried to do too much, and maybe that discouraged me. I don't know. I know I used to write. I mean, that's something that was something that was like I felt that that was my identity. Like literally, I was a writer. I could say like, yeah, I did this. I would read people's stuff. I would send people my stuff to the point where I thought I was annoying people. I kind of stopped. I used to post on Facebook a lot. I used to actually have short stories and stuff like that. I think, well, even to this, I used to write poetry. To this day, I think I did release a poem, um, maybe last year or 2 years ago. That was actually the most recent thing because a lot of stuff, it was a lot of stuff that early on was motivated by what my dad did, and my dad, he was a published writer, and it's not like he wasn't writing stories. He was he was a smart guy, and he had a passion for natural remedies, medicine, all that stuff. He did research. I mean, if I had to talk of one thing about my dad, he's persistent about what he wanted to do. I mean, I can my one of my memories about him, he was like, okay, I'm not saying he's a neat freak. I mean, when it came to the rest of the house, yeah, if it made a mess, like, yeah, I was in trouble for it. But my dad had an office in the house that we lived in, and the office was probably the best reflection of his mind. I mean, literally, he had ugh, three bookshelves full of books, health books, all this stuff that I know he read himself. I know he went through them, and I know he would keep his knowledge up on his profession. And when he graduated, like, he worked at GNC for years. I mean, years upon years. Like, and the only reason he left, oh, not even left, only reason he didn't work for GNC at a certain point was because his employees took advantage of him. People were doing the BS where they're stealing stuff and then selling it to the side to people, and he basically, GNC doesn't play with that. And if the theft is too big, they fire the whole staff. I mean, the same thing happened to my mom. They will fire the whole staff and replace you. Like, people think, oh, they can't do it to everybody. They'll do it to everybody, and innocent people lose their jobs. My dad was one of them. But my main point is the way he would go about writing. He would write magazine articles. He gave me suggestions for writing because I picked a lot of stuff I did early on was because I was motivated by my dad. Like, we had a pretty alright relationship when I was younger. I mean, things got rocky when I was a teenager. Uh, I mean, it doesn't happen to everybody, but I was kind of basically rebellious. Things weren't like 100%, but my whole thing, I realized I was doing stuff, not almost like not realizing, but realizing I was doing a lot of stuff because I was motivated by my dad. He was a writer, and I loved writing. I used to carry a notebook around with me in school, and I would write. I was working on this same story for at least like 5 years, and I don't have the first draft of that story anymore. It was horrible. I actually burnt the first draft of that story. I lit that shit on fire. It was actually kind of embarrassing, but it had too much, like, based around shows I used to watch when I was little. But it was that, and I think that was middle school. I had been writing poetry too, and I realized I wasn't too bad at that. I guess I enjoyed writing it, so it's not about whether I was good or bad. I enjoyed it, and I think I wrote so much at the beginning because I didn't feel self-conscious of it. So it was a little bit easier. Um, I don't know if it was because I felt self-conscious of the things I would work on later on. Because I know I'm self-conscious of it. Like, when I release something, I will watch it over and over again after I do it. And I still do that to this day. If I make a video, I'll keep watching it. And I'll notice flaws in it and all that. And I'll get better steadily. Like, I mean, even I guess this more recent year is doing a channel and making content with two other of my friends, Ian and Dave. Like I mean, when I made an announcement a while ago that I was going to try to stream more consistently, and it's been a rough transition to try to get into that again. Like I did do one stream, and then after that, it's been kind of like rocky. I mean, I can't necessarily do this every weekend. It's hard to do it now that I have people I have to worry about. But is it something I might want to do in the future? And also work on having a career elsewhere. Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I mean, I don't expect to start a podcast and people jump onto it. Like, if anything, I'm doing this for, I guess, friends that want to hear my voice. But this is the main reason I'm doing this first episode this way is because it's I need to start off somewhere and give myself some type of motivation to get through all this and to get some idea of where I want to go in the future for the podcast. And that's not. I mean, a lot of people that started, they have an idea. Like I said, they're doing it because of content they already have, and they're talking about content they're already working on or things of that nature. Some have theme podcasts or just horror based or whatever. But yeah, this first episode, I wanted it to be about me. I plan on recording. I want to record audio for a podcast. Um, and at least do something kind of more on a consistent basis, better equipment, different topics, Papa John's, mainly things of that nature. This is mostly the explanation of me and where my thought processes come from when it's has something to do with content creation and where I started. Like I said, I'm not in any way, shape, or form a veteran in making content. I mean, I started making content when I was younger. I'm not saying I kept going at it and I'm ultra pro now. I'm still very inexperienced because it's not something I practiced on. I've used like the same editing software for years, since like freshman year, and I'm not 100% at that either. Editing is annoying. I mean, I've had old friends hit me up and say, "Hey, I kind of want you to edit my stuff or run this YouTube channel, do that," and I don't have the passion for that anymore. Like I don't want someone to pay me to do something and I'm not going to give them good work. And that's kind of where my stance was at. Like I'm doing this, I guess, for not maybe for fun. I'm doing this because it's something that it's not a job. It's not something that's a job for me yet. A lot of people make this their job, and if it does get good and it does become my job, that's great, I guess. But I'm not gonna force myself to do something I'm not passionate in. So I didn't stay at same jobs for the longest time. Like I didn't stick with a lot of jobs. I wasn't passionate with it. I didn't get any fulfillment out of it. I mean, you know what I mean? It's hard working a job where you feel as though it's soul draining. Like nobody wants to deal with that. I mean, not even a lot of people, parents will tell you that's the reason to go to college. So you end up getting a good job that is not soul crushing every day. And I mean, I don't really want to get into my idea of like how my thoughts of college. It's a whole it's a whole rabbit hole. Some people are adamant about doing it. I'm not really adamant about being or forcing myself to go through college. I feel as though, uh, without going into too much detail, the whole thing, unless you can set yourself up for something good or something that you can really push toward, it's that college alone can feel soul crushing at times. It's it's a lot of work, and it basically puts you at a stance where you're in debt, and you're most likely going to be in that debt for the rest of your life. And in some cases, some people can pay off their college debt. I know people that do it, and they just basically live with their parents for a while, but other people don't have the luxury to stay with their parents until they pay off their college debt. And even when you do that, apparently it hurts your credit to pay off your college debt quicker, and it's just, you can't really win. They expect that debt to be a lifetime, and you pay it off too quick, it hurts your credit. So it's it's a race trying to get up there, or trying to claw your way to something. I don't know what, I can't tell you what type of father, because if you don't know this, I am recently, well, I've been trying to play the father role for some time, but I do have a son. Was born this year, and I look at him and I don't know what I can tell him or what I would tell them. A lot of people will pass on the same things they got from their parents, and it's like, what do I pass on to my son? I don't necessarily, I can't tell him that, yeah, you need to go to college and do all that. I can't tell him something that I can't even tell myself, because the way things are currently, just in the United States in general, it's not made for you to win. It's really not made for you to win. It's There's tools out there that you can put yourself to a good, I guess the word would be like a good foothold, and you can climb your way up. I'm not saying that's not possible, but the system is designed for you to lose, and there's no denying that. You, I mean, look at the healthcare system in America, where it's based around, you're not able to pay your medical bills, you don't have insurance. All right, that goes in the collection, that affects your credit, and that stays on your credit long enough, and it affects it. Then if you want to buy a house, you should not look at buying a house or getting a car or anything like that. There are people that are solely sold debt just because of medical bills. It took me a long time to pay off medical bills at one point that I forgot I had. It's no fault of, mostly my own. It was a confusion between me and my dad having the same exact name, and he had a lot of medical bills himself at the time. So most likely he just filed those away, and I didn't know I had them. So it was a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot trying to win a rat race. Then the United States does not set you up to where it's like, you can do this, and you have to basically really, really fight to live some semi way of comfort. It's a hard fight, and when you sit there and you want to compare it to the American dream that everybody wanted to mold themselves around back in like the 50s, 60s, or whatever the American dream, the white picket fence, the fucking shutter doors, all that type of shit, family unit, boy, girl, dog, wife, husband. That shit hasn't been real for some time. And it's not just because life is hard. I mean, that's not the American dream anymore. And I'm gonna try not to get too, I don't know what the word would be, but the idea that that's the American dream and that's what we should all strive for, it's just not possible. And it's not set up for any generation but one. It's just not possible. And then I can't really. It's like my stance of minimum wage. I understand to a certain extent, but it's not livable. It's not livable for anybody. It's basically a punishment that you don't go to college to get this other job. You kind of you F yourself over. Because now you're at a point where you don't have a good job, you didn't put yourself in debt by going to college, and that's kind of what you have to do. I mean, right now, I'm not. I I make all right money. It's not as much money as I would want to make, but I make all right money, and I worked hard to get there. I may have worked harder than most. Um, I spent a lot of time trying to be the best, I guess, employee I could possibly be when it came to my work ethic. I'll push myself harder than I would push myself, like, I guess, higher elevated than most people. I would try to be better than the next person, and if I'm better than that next person, then I can have one leg up on them. And it took me a while, and I ended up going through. I mean, I got to a point where I went through a couple different management roles. And I mean, I'm gonna say I believe this. Like, this is something my dad told me a year or so ago, that the way my resume looked, it just didn't, it showed non-structure, and he's not wrong. Um, when you jump from job to job, it doesn't show like you got that staying power, and I did have, that was a worry for me. I mean, and that just ties in the whole, like, trying to find a job that you feel as though you're passionate in doing. Like, the last job I worked at was Wawa, and I kept at it for a while because I liked it at the beginning, and I was trying to figure out, do I like this job because I like it, I like doing it every day, or do I like the job because I'm making more money than I was before? And the answer ended up being because of money, and that's why I had no. Wawa was probably the one of the first jobs, I mean, I quit a job before, but it was maybe the second job I quit, and it was mostly. I mean, it was. It's something. Some of it was my misunderstanding of how things work. I mean, this is just how apparently it happens in other job management jobs too, where they'll just move you, and you're expected to go with it. So, um,
George?
so it was the time of my life when I was working at Wawa. I guess I knew it was slipping. My productivity in that job started to slip because I really started to see how much I didn't like it. I was working overnight, and at the time, it was a lot. It's a lot to, like, adjust myself to. You're putting your life, and you're doing a whole switch, and it's really hard to switch to, like, all right, you're up all night and you sleep most of the day. It was really hard to do that. Well, maybe one of the reasons I did leave that is because I didn't know I was moving, and they told me out of the blue, "Hey, you're going to this store down the street." And for me, I absolutely do not like not being mentally prepped for stuff, and it was out of nowhere. And at the time, I was also looking into trying to move out of Philadelphia. So they moved me, and when they did that, it kind of put me in a really bad point where it's like, hey, I'm trying to go somewhere else, like, and it became this whole thing where I'm sitting here waiting to, which I found Wawa does this, where they will keep you somewhere and they won't let you move out unless they move themselves. So I was trying to get out and go to this other place, but the district manager was really giving me a hard time, and that it didn't really, it rubbed me the wrong way, I guess. And I probably could have handled it better, but after a while I'm like, just nah, I'm not gonna really deal with it. I would have loved if they would have told me like, hey, we're thinking about moving you to this other store. But it's whatever. I'm not. I wanted to see if food service was something I would want to go. And at one point I wanted to get a degree. Not even a degree. I wanted to become a chef, but maybe I was not passionate enough for like what do you have to deal with in the food service industry, and I can't attest that it's anything like working at a restaurant because I have not worked at a restaurant before, which I guarantee is probably a lot busier. I mean, they have lunch rushes at Wawa, but yeah, well, it's a lot to try to find your own drive when doing things like this, and this is why I'm trying to find out what do I want to pass on to family, my family, because I don't believe in the current system that's set for people in America. I know people that go through a lot of stuff where people's main drive to even go into the military is their promise to you that, hey, we will pay for your college. And I've heard for so many people how hard it is to actually get that money that you're promised after you've done your tours. And what do you say if your kid wants to go into the military? If you have experience of how they deal with it. I mean, for one, most people are going to say no, they don't want their kid to go in the military because it's a stressful situation. Like, you're going to worry that, all right, is your kid going to get hurt? And a lot of them lie. The recruiters will definitely lie to you for not just personal information, like my personal experience. I've from a lot of people how recruiters will definitely lie to high schoolers. They pitch this to high schoolers to try to get them out there and hype them up, so it becomes not worth it. And it's just like, what is what is any other reason anybody wants to go into the military? It's a lot of people do it because of patriotism. A lot that's like the back in the day. It was a lot of it was like a lot of patriotism. Like, oh, I want to do my part. Like back when they had the draft, it was like, yeah, I want to do my part. I want to do this, and some people were willing, some people weren't. And it's crazy how, I mean, there's something in there where if you're drafted, you got to do it. Like when Muhammad Ali ended up in jail for saying no. I mean, it's. I mean, I understand the stance of that. I can definitely understand why not to be patriotic, especially living as a black man in America. I believe one of his quotes are like, "You're my oppressor, not no, not people over Viet. I know Viet Cong." Like, I've as long as I live, like I maybe I have some type of understanding for the older generation of why they believe in America, but it's hard to get behind a country that is so divided. Like, for one, just politics in general. I can't stand politics. I'd rather not vote at all. People are like, oh, it's your right. You can do this, and I hate politics. I really don't like it. This whole two-party system's got both sides against each other. I've never saw something that is so basically someone definitely pulling your strings. Like the government wants us divided. Like it's not. It should be absolutely obvious they want us divided. Like literally. Sounds like conspiracy theories, but they want us divided. Keeps us less focused on what they do. It's the only reason I hate politics. I don't like the idea of just voting for uh, this one this YouTube channel I used to watch talked about voting for the shiniest of two turds, and I absolutely don't like the idea of just voting for the lesser two evils. I'd rather just not vote at all. And it seems like I'm gonna have to do that. And not just for me, because at this point voting it's not just for me. There's people that I care about that have more stake in where this vote goes than I do. I mean, black people in general have been fighting for rights for I don't know how long. Have been fighting just to be like things. Let's be honest, things aren't equal, and they haven't been. A lot of people act as though like people are making this shit up, and it's something like, oh, it's not the way you see it. It's like this is why I don't get why people are so divided. I mean, I get it. No, I'm not gonna sit there and say I don't get it. It's hard to understand why, but I get why. People don't experience if they don't experience what you experience, they unless they are made that to be that type of person, they aren't going to be able to feel how you feel. And the way they experience with it being different, they're just going to be like, oh, okay. Well, it's not that bad to me, so I don't see an issue. Uh, it's a lot of stuff that is right now in this country that it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with for not just me, but just people day to day in this country. It's a lot, man. It's a lot of stress. I feel like, I mean, the way I see it nowadays, I feel like one generation they made it so they can be comfortable in their old age, and then the other generations left to pick up the pieces. Like this is the mentality of that. As long as I'm good, everybody else can suffer. And in a dream world, then everybody would be equal. Everybody wouldn't have one side wouldn't have more stress than the other. Everybody would live with the same stress. But we are so divided as a country. It's insane. It is absolutely insane. Like the human condition is poisonous. Like it's actual poison. I know people and I've seen people willing to step on someone else so they can go forward. I get being cutthroat like that when you're trying to get a job. I mean, in a sense, I don't. It shouldn't have to be like that either, but it is. But just with simple things and trying to coexist with another human being, just how people step on each other, it is not going to do anything for anyone else. It's just going to hurt. It's just going to hurt the next person. And that's what we are doing right now. We're picking up the pieces that were left for us, and to make stuff even better. It's I mean, it's been bad. I mean, medical. Let's like literally 2020. It's probably one of the biggest examples of how shitty things can get. Uh, we have billion-dollar businesses that are nearly tanking because of a virus, and the government's bailing them out. I mean, in a sense, I understand bailouts to an extent. I understand bailing out a billion-dollar business. It's not as though it's like oh they're padding it so the business won't fail. A good portion of that money is so the CEO's paycheck doesn't shrink too much. Because yeah, some places are going to have to close and slow their hours down because of this pandemic, and that's basically what's happening. Like a lot of food places are probably taking the biggest hit. Department stores, I don't think so. I mean, not as big as food places are. Depends on what state you live in, I guess. But restaurants, no one wants to be in a restaurant, or some people do. At this point, they're too tired to deny that they want or how they feel. They want normalcy again. They want it to be how it is. Like they're clawing for it. And how this started off, it started off with everyone trying to claw someone else so they can be okay. And it's humanity is just so toxic now. People were buying stuff in bulk and fear that they were going to be in their houses for. I mean, there's fear, then there's like taking too much. People didn't need carts full of steaks. They didn't need every can. They didn't need all the toilet paper to fit in their house. Like people thought they were gonna be bunkered up. Like this is the apocalypse. No, it. I I solely put the fault on the government in this standpoint because it could have been there were things in place, but it was dissolved solely because this administration wanted to delete everything Obama had done before that. I mean, they did. I mean, I believe the site Obama had resources for trans people and all this stuff, and that was immediately deleted when the Trump's administration took over. And it's stuff that you would think. No, it's not that we think. It's people like I believe this, so f how those people feel. It is just a lot of people stomping on other people. Never in my life am I going to sit here and tell somebody that says I'm trans, I want to live this way, and I'm going to tell them no, you can't. If they're doing something that is hurting other people, yeah, I mean, legitimately, it's not good for another person. For instance, people trying to make pedophilia a sexuality. No, I'm not for that. But people just trying to live in their own skin and feel comfortable in their own skin, I can understand that. I can 100% understand that. And it's something that shouldn't be governed by someone else's belief system. That best because they don't agree with it, they shouldn't be able to get resources. It is hard for people that live as trans to get what they need. And it doesn't hurt someone else. I don't see how. Like, really, I don't see how someone living as a trans man or trans woman is hurting someone else. Where, I mean, like I said, this is I can definitely understand their movement because it's what Black America has been trying to deal with for so long, where they're just trying to live and be comfortable in their own skin and they can't. They're living in a country that just wants to keep them down. But I feel for them. I feel for everybody that has to deal with not being able to live comfortably in their own skin because it is very hard. It is very hard. Things things need to change. And it's obvious that things need to change. But I hate to sound like a hopeless person, but the way humanity functions, we are going to be the reason that we don't last because we aren't worried about our fellow man. We're worried about only us. And that is how we are made. That is how we are conditioned to be. I absolutely refuse to be that way. If I can offer help to anybody, then I'll offer help. And I understand it. I'm not going to offer someone so much help and leave myself vulnerable. And I don't expect anybody to do that either. But don't step on anybody else just to make yourself feel better. We all as a race just need to do better. And like I said, who's to say we won't change? The way we're going, it's hard to believe we will. But if we do, that's even better. Because there's a lot of people that are riding on the hope that we do change, and people do see things differently. So, as I was said before, like I said, my issue with doing a podcast is I know myself and I know I'll ramble. So I'm gonna cut this here, and I'm going to I'm gonna work on getting this to where I want it to be and getting it better. But at least the first one I do, I want it to be my thoughts on everything and things now. And my fingers are crossed that maybe I'll be able to be at a better point than I was before. But we'll see. We'll see how things go. And I hope that I can at least do this. Content creation can be hard. It's not as easy, and that can be soul sucking if you let it be. But anybody that does listen to this, I appreciate hearing people listening to my thoughts, because you definitely don't have to.